Okay, welcome to the section on factoring quadratics. We are going to be factoring the type of quadratics that are ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is equal to 1. Now, what that means is that the number right here in front of the x squared is always going to be 1. And in math, since we don't see the 1, if you see just an x squared at the beginning, then you know you're in the right place, and this is where we learn how to factor those kinds of quadratics. Okay? Now, you recently took a test and learned how to multiply two binomials. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit here, and we're going to work on this section right here. Okay? So, on our last test, we took x, we multiplied it by x, and that's where we got the x squared. We took x and we multiplied by 5, and that's where we got the 5x. Then we took 3 and we multiplied by x, and that's where we got the 3x. And then we took 3 and we multiplied by the 5, and that's where we got the 15. If you remember, it always is in this format when we multiply two binomials. And then we combine these two linear terms, these two middle terms, and they end up being the 8x. The x squared stays by itself, the 15 stays by itself, and I'm finished. What I want you to understand in this is that the middle number here, the 8x, is always going to be the sum of these two numbers, the 3 and the 5 in this case. Okay, so again, the middle term is always going to be the sum of the two numbers that are in the binomial. Okay, and then notice that the 15 right here is always going to be the product of those same two numbers. Product meaning multiply. Okay, so we multiply those two numbers, 3 and 5, and we get 15. So the puzzle that we have to figure out on these problems is what number times what number, okay, equals the last number, and what number plus what number equals the middle number. And that's how we factor a quadratic, okay, is we have to figure out that puzzle. So let's take a look at what it looks like, because now we're going to take something like this, and I'm going to ask you to produce this over here. Okay, so we're going backwards. So instead of asking you to multiply two binomials like we did in the last test, I'm going to give you the answer from the last test, and you're going to tell me what two binomials formed that answer. So watch how we do it. Scroll up a little bit. Okay, now here's an example. X squared plus 9x plus 18. So going with what we just learned, we need to know what two numbers, okay, when multiplied equal 18, and that when add together equal 9. So one thing I like to do is I like to make an x, okay? And on top of that x, I like to put the constant, in this case the 18. And on the bottom of that x, I like to put the 9. And then the two numbers that go here are going to be the two numbers that form my binomial. So I have to ask myself, what two numbers when multiplied equal 18 that when added equal 9? So over here, I'm listing my factors of 18. Okay, those are all sets of numbers that when multiplied equal 18. But there's only one set of numbers that when you add them equal 9. So I know that the 3 goes here and the 6 goes there. And that's where we get x plus 3 and x plus 6. Okay? Because remember, guys, when we multiply x times x, we're only going to get x squared. So if you see something that has to be factored, like in this case, x squared plus 9x plus 18, you know there has to be an x first and an x first, because it's the only way you can get just a plain x squared when you're multiplying two things. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. Here's a quadratic. Okay, we want to know what, let's see, hold on one second. We want to know two binomials. All right, and I'm just going to move Sorry about that. I want to know two binomials that make up that x squared plus 7x plus 12. I know an x has to go here, and I know an x has to go here. Okay? How do I know that? Because I know x times x is the only way I can get x squared. Okay? So how do I find what numbers come after that x? I'm going to draw an x over here. I'm going to put the 12 up top, and I'm going to put the 7 on the bottom. And then I'm going to ask myself, what two numbers, when multiplied, equal 12? Okay, so when multiplied, they equal 12. It's supposed to be a multiply symbol. And when added together, equal 7. So I have to think of factors of 12. So my factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 4 and 3. And maybe you could do that in your head. Maybe you know which one of those add to 7 right off the bat, and you don't have to list them, but it does help to list them in case you get stuck. But we can see that 4 and 3 add to 7, as well as 4 times 3 is 12. So the 4 goes here, and the 3 goes here. Now, it doesn't matter which one goes on which side. Okay, you can put them on whichever side you want. All right. Oops. Let me just erase that. And then I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to put my 4 right here. I'm going to put my 3 right here, and that is my answer. Okay, so those two binomials, if you multiply them out, multiply the 4 and the 3, you would get x squared plus 7x plus 12. So maybe pause the video here, okay, and you could maybe look at that again, rewind it, and move on and try the next one on your own. Okay, I'll get you started by making the x. All right, and try that on your own. Okay, once you've tried it, maybe push play again and watch how I do it. Okay, so we know there's going to be two binomials with x and x. And we have to find what numbers go after them. So we're going to put the 14 up on top, and we're going to put the 9 on the bottom. So what two numbers when multiplied equal 14, that when you add equal 9? So you can start guessing factors. You have 1 and 14. But 1 plus 14 is 15, and 1 minus 14 is 13, so that doesn't help us. But then we know that 7 and 2 are also factors of 14. And 7 times 2 is 14. 7 plus 2 is 9. So we know there's a 7, and we know there's a 2. We just make sure the puzzle works once we double check it, and once it does, we can add them right in here. And again, I could put the 2 first and the 7 in the second one. It does not matter where you put them. And there's your answer. So this little x here, do you have to do that?